Today I'm covering one of the most evil people ever to walk the face of this earth. This video is about the terror attack where 3 little girls were murdered in Southport, and I think it was 10 more were injured, and I think adults were injured as well. A horrific, shocking crime. One of the ones where when I've done my research, I was finding myself getting fucking emotional just reading about it. And I just felt compelled to do this story out of that emotion. You know, I really want people to know what the fuck is going on in this country right now and how outrageous it is that this attack was allowed to even happen. I'm outraged. Like, so badly. Because many people, understandably so, think that this was a bit of a cover-up, where the government deliberately withheld certain bits of information from the public. Now, why they would have done that, I'll let you make your minds up as I go through the story in the comments, but I will be very interested to read what you think. The lad in question was 17 at the time of the murders. He turned 18 very quickly afterwards, and his name is Axel Rudakubana. He was born in Wales to Rwandan parents who had immigrated to the UK, I think was seeking asylum in connection with the genocide in Rwanda. There's very little information on why, how they came over. Like, the documentation online is pretty non-existent. People are digging, as you can imagine, but not much is coming up. But what we do know is that the lad that these 2 people raised turned into an absolute monster. And very, very early on, there was plenty of warning signs, let me tell you, and we're going to go through them. For a kickoff, when Rudakubana's laptops were searched by police, they included images relating to wars, international conflicts like Ukraine, Gaza, Korea, and took a disturbing interest in ethnic cleansing. Documents found on the tablet covered a wide range of violent conflicts, including Nazi Germany, violence of Buddhism, Sri Lanka, clan cleansing in Somalia, Rwandan genocide, Iraq. The list goes on. Tales of beheadings, cartoons depicting violence. The kid had a fascination with death and destruction and evil shit. And apparently he hated white people and believed that they should all be killed as well. So, a very disturbed man we're talking about here. He attacked someone in school and broke their arm, which he was expelled for, but there's a video clip of him being escorted out of the classroom. There you go. He's not a big lad, but this just shows what a nightmare child he was. Now, he'd had many run-ins with the police as a youth before he committed these crimes, and in one of the meetings, he confessed to them that he'd been thinking about poisoning people, which hits home even more when you find out that he actually made his own poison later on that would have killed people. Easily. He was caught with a knife on him at least 10 times that we know of, including one of the times being at school. Apparently he had a machete and a bow and arrow under his bed. What the fuck are the parents doing, by the way? If you know you've got a kid who's a bit fucking off, they definitely knew it because they rang the police on themselves multiple times. You'd have thought, probably check under the bed. It's the first place every kid hides things. In 2019, he rang Childline and asked them, what should I do if I want to kill somebody? It's literally like that there is him trying to be caught, almost. He gave plenty people plenty opportunity to know that one's a fucking lunatic. He was found researching school shootings during one of his IT classes. He'd also been found researching the London Bridge terror attack as well. So these referrals were made to the anti-extremism scheme Prevent, which I guess are there to catch people before they do this sort of shit. Fuck knows what they're there for. Doesn't work, clearly. All the signs were fucking right there. But he was known to multiple authorities, right? Not just them, the police, etc. He actually had a terrorist training manual for Al-Qaeda in his possession for 3 years before this took place. That alone in the UK is an offence. You could go to jail for that, I think. In that manual, there's passages about, like, assassinations and mass murder. Like, it's a how-to to do this sort of shit. He had a manual on how to carry out knife attacks with lethal force. The more you read into it, the more you're like, fuck me, man, this kid was fucking... It was coming. The whole time. The neighbour said, actually, on the run-up to the actual attacks, that the police had been called to the house several times. So the parents, like, must have known there was a problem. I'm assuming they were the ones calling the police on this kid. So the police are getting there. We're now finding out all of this. How did this not come out? Like, how did they not figure out, like, we need to put a stop to this lad before this gets out of hand? What, did no one fucking check under the bed? Like, what was going on? It's really unbelievable because people lost their lives Little babies lost their lives because of this fucker. And there was plenty of warning signs out there. Apparently, he tried to carry out a similar attack the week before. He even got so far as to get in the car of a taxi that he'd booked under a fake name. And he was ready to set off, but the defendant's father ran out of the house and pleaded with the driver not to take him. There was an argument, but eventually the defendant got out of the car and returned to the house. It's unlikely that this was a coincidence, as the last day of term with students due to leave the school premises at 12:30 for summer. So he was planning on doing it basically before kids broke up for school. His dad clearly knew, I can't let this happen. I just don't understand how you can know your kid is capable of such dark, demonic things, yet you're stopping them from happening that day, but you know it's coming. Where's the alarm bells? What the fuck was getting said between those police meetings that when they were coming to that house? What happened then? There needs to be a fucking massive inquiry into that, because when I get into the details of what this lad did, it's fucking mind-blowing.
He didn't want to be recognised. Hood up, mask on. Axel Rudakubana skulks in the back of a taxi. He'd booked it to take him to Hart Street in Southport. Having arrived there, the driver asks him how he wants to pay.
With cash or card, mate.
But he jumps out with other things on his mind. The teenager only had one intent, looking for the Taylor Swift dance class. First he tries the wrong door, and then calmly wanders through the one he wants, before disappearing up the stairs towards the children.
Now, apparently, before he set off on that journey, he was actually Googling a Sydney church attack, which was similar in that it was also done with a knife, where multiple people were stabbed. It was all premeditated. This was all very thought out, clearly, and it had been building up for a long time. And the place he chose to do this horrific killing was at a little kids dance studio. They were doing a Taylor Swift themed event, and the little kids were making bracelets when this all started. Now, we've got statements from a couple of the teachers who were in the classroom at the time. One was called Leanne. She said she felt the knife plunged into her back as she was screaming to the children, "Run away, run away." I mean, that's unbelievable for a teacher to have to go through that moment. These little babies who are very young was screaming as he was chasing them around the room, trying to slaughter them. Heidi, one of the other teachers, said that she saw him move swiftly across the room, lunging through children, and it was only when he stabbed Leanne that she registered actually what was going on. She tried to pull Leanne away. She started pushing the children towards the exit, as you would, courageously. One of the girls had ran towards the toilet, which she had noticed because it was upstairs on the landing, so she followed her. She said that she locked the door, pushed her foot up against the door, and basically told the little girl to be quiet, and they were just terrified that this guy was going to come in there and find them. She said that when she heard that the children were still crying for help, she realised that not all of them managed to get out. You gotta wonder what the fuck that must be like going through your head. Nobody knows what they're going to do in a scenario like this, and this teacher made a decision, tried to protect this child, and you know, who do you protect? It's a fucking nightmare, and she obviously did what she thought was right in that moment, but to know that you're hearing the screams of these other kids, fucking hell. That'll live with her forever. God knows what's going to be in her mind. But I feel for her. One of the worst things I read in this attack was about the CCTV footage. And if you're sensitive, like, this is a bit dark in my opinion, so you might want to skip this bit. There was CCTV of a kid getting to the door and almost getting out and then getting dragged back in by him. Because the kid eventually does come to the door with stab wounds and collapses. And that just felt like a horror movie. This is the most evil, horrible, disgusting monster of a person. This coward, this little bitch of a man who would do this to little babies, man. It is unbelievable. It's like out of a fucking horror movie. Apparently a window cleaner called Joe was like passing by, managed to follow the police in when this all was kicking off. He grabbed one of the girls, comes out screaming his head off because the girl was dead. A lot of people, so many people were traumatized by this, clearly, and God knows what the surviving children are going to live with as well, because fucking hell. Even the people who survived this were stabbed significantly. That's how bad it was. Apparently one woman turned up to pick her daughter up and then realized the situation and tried to get a bunch of the kids in the car with her. One of the girls had already been stabbed through the chest and she later died. God bless that mother who was just trying to give them some safety. There's just nothing compares to a loss of a child, because that's not what's supposed to happen. Even if sad things happen to older people, we can rationalize it. Babies are not supposed to be buried by their parents, man. It's fucking horrible. In just 15 minutes, he murdered 3 children, attempted to murder 8 others, and 3 adults. Elsie Stancombe, this beautiful little girl here, bless her, she had 85 sharp force injuries. This guy was just stabbing as much as possible. He wanted the most amount of destruction. She was pronounced dead at the scene. She couldn't have survived. This guy was not giving them a fucking chance. Similarly, BB King, this pretty little girl, bless her, 122 sharp force injuries. And she was also pronounced dead at the scene. I fucking can't believe it, man. It's just unbelievable. And this was the little girl who died the day after the attack, who I think made it to the car. Alice De Silva, as she's named here, she also had, as well as stab wounds to her body, she had a severe head injury as well. So God knows the brutality. And I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm going into more than enough right now. But equally, there's rumours online of some real horrible things that went down there, and I think the parents have mentioned, like, you know, for the privacy, they don't want all of that stuff divulged. That's absolutely respectable. Whatever they say should go, but the fact that we even know this is traumatic enough for people to be outraged. The girl who was pulled back in on the CCTV actually was stabbed 32 times, but somehow survived. God almighty, thank God. A 9-year-old was treated for stab wounds, and another girl aged 8 who would be taken to hospital having suffered a single stab wound to the back of her chest. And a 7-year-old girl also. I mean, this is just insanity. And obviously the teachers also, Leanne, 35, she was taken to hospital. She had 5 stab wounds, and apparently it was severe force which caused all sorts of damage to her body. Fucking hell. Another girl, 10 years old, taken by air ambulance to Royal Manchester Children's Hospital, life-threatening condition. She needed to have a spleen removed. She'll have to take antibiotics for the rest of her life. An 8-year-old girl also 4 stab wounds, and a 13-year-old girl needed a transfusion due to major blood loss, having had 2 stab wounds to her shoulder and chest. I mean, it's just... This is when you realise just what an evil, evil piece of shit this lad is, because when he was in custody, he said he was glad that they were dead. He was happy about it. It's a good thing those children are dead. I'm glad. I'm so happy, he said in the quote. We've all been exposed to serial killer documentaries and stuff, but you kind of do get desensitized after a while. But when it's little babies and he's talking like this, you're like, fucking hell. This is the darkest shit I've ever heard. He asked how old the youngest child killed was, and the police officer said 6. He burst out laughing, apparently. I hope he burns in hell. Right, and I'm sure you all feel the same way, right? This is like a really nasty, mean piece of evil shit. I can't even think of the words. This is my job. I talk for a living. I can't even... Words will never do justice. What a horrible piece of shit this prick is. And I really hope when he's in jail, they kick the shit out of him every fucking day. We shouldn't be spending fucking money on this prick, and we will be. Plenty, housing him in a prison cell for the next 50 fucking years because he's young. Just sit him in the chair and fry the bastard, as far as I'm concerned, because that is exactly why we need to bring back shit like the death penalty. Now, after this guy was apprehended, the media, for some reason, decided to depict him as a clingy choir boy from a religious family, and they used this photograph of him from when he was about 11 or 12. When he did this, he was 17, nearly 18. He turned 18 very quickly afterwards. Why are we using this photograph? I understand that initially you had to wait until he was 18, but when he was turned 18, they didn't show an 18-year-old photograph of him, or a much more recent picture of him, which they would have easily got access to. Come on. They chose to go with this photo, where clearly he does not look like the monster that he became, because this is what he actually looked like around the time of the killings. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this picture bears very little resemblance to the man he was by the time he was 18. And I know that there's some certain laws whereby you can't necessarily post a picture of him until he's 18. He turned 18. They didn't fucking change it. They didn't change the picture they were running with. That is a face of fucking evil. That's a face of absolutely no remorse. But the public were not introduced to that. I don't know if they could actually use the mugshot, but you could use another photo of him that they could get access to easily. They hacked fucking dead kids' phones, for Christ's sake. You did tell me they can't get a more recent picture of him. We know what the media are capable of. They also used this one. When they were posting the pictures like that, in the same pictures of the girls next to him, it looked like he was one of the victims. It didn't look like he could have done it because he looks just as young as them almost. That's wrong. And the way it was reported was not right. A shy little choir boy. The guy had fucking terrorists written on him since since the fucking day he came out with his mother by the sounds of it. It was a fucking nightmare. So I don't know why they did that. Let me know in the comments why you think it might have been, because it's just not right. You're not giving the public the true picture of what went on here. The fact that not one of the big, you know, mainstream media publications printed a picture of him, a more recent one, makes me feel like there was an order across the board that that's not going to happen. They're always trying to one-up each other, these lot, and trying to get the story first. So for them to all sit there and do that at the same time, something was said, in my opinion. Now, the police constable in charge, Serena Kennedy, had said in October that there is speculation online the police are keeping things from the public, and that this is certainly not the case. Well, why aren't you giving us a fucking recent photograph of him after he's turned 18 then? Why are you still depicting him as an 11 or 12-year-old boy? Now, as some of the details started coming out and people started getting an understanding of just how extreme this murder spree was, people started suspecting that it was a terror attack. And they were right. It was a terror attack. They were spot on. And understandably, you know, with little kids being killed like this, there's a fucking emotional outcry from the public in that moment. They're sick of it. They're disgusted that their own babies aren't safe on these streets anymore. And there was riots. I mean, it was absolute fucking chaos, to be fair. The police had a lot to deal with how the mob had just mobilized and turned, and they were just venting and smashing the place up. It was absolute fucking chaos, and there were people online, you know, speaking out, frustrated, angry. Some people online were being racist. I think that's important to acknowledge that, because that will come up later as Keir Starmer, and I'm going to get on to him, has his say on what was said. Some people were being racist from the tweets I've managed to have a look at. But some people were concerned, upset and angry and frustrated, decent human beings. Many, many, many thousands of people were just like all of us. How on earth has this happened? This is a disgrace. This is an outrage. Totally ordinary reaction. And they expressed that anger in a fair and proper way on Twitter, on their Facebook, saying how fucking angry they were and how sick of this sort of thing they were, because we see babies killed far too often in Britain, and enough is enough. They did the right thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, some people were racist and they broke the law. They made that mistake. But there was a lot of people who didn't. A lot of people were venting in the proper way. Now, what Keir Starmer decided to do was group those racists, those rioters, and all of the decent, normal human beings who were rightly outraged, all under the same blanket as far right. Unbelievable. Yes, you can deal with the racist people, you can deal with the rioters, but never ever think that you can put that label on a huge bunch of people who are having a completely ordinary reaction to a horrific crime on the children of this country, man. This guy has no shame. And it was all because he was in a tricky situation. It was a difficult thing to deal with. And rather than deal with the complexity of it and the nuance to this scenario, he depicted all of those decent people venting as far-right thugs, along with the people who were breaking the law, because it was easier, because then he could paint them out to be the bad guy and he didn't have to address what they were saying. He would gaslight them and make them feel like the bad guy, and him feel like the good guy. Always the victim. Always subvert it and always become the victim. That's what he does, man.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
He doesn't acknowledge at any point that this was a terror attack, and instead it's all about what those people are doing. Don't get me wrong, I understand that him mentioning that, but what the fuck, bro? Do you know how bad this is, that this is happening on our streets and you're worried about people smashing up like some police vans or whatever? I'm not saying that that's not a fucking, that's cool. I'm not. And I wish that those people didn't do that, because it kind of is giving him this opportunity to divert attention. But it just felt tone deaf, to be honest with you, when you look at what really had been, the loss that had been felt felt by the UK. The rioters were jailed, and also people who posted stuff on social media were jailed. And I mean, some of the people who were writing like nasty tweets, right? They got worse sentences than fucking rapists. That's fucking mental, that. Like, and I'm not saying that you should be able to say whatever you want online. As much as I'm up for free speech, I understand that there's a line, and some people might have crossed that line. I don't know. I haven't seen every single tweet. The old saying of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that I was taught as a kid, is that physical injury is far worse than a few horrible, nasty words. So don't let it get to you almost. And what we're saying here is we're seeing people being jailed for those nasty words longer than people get for rape, man. That is insane. That is insane. I can't believe that there are poor women out there watching like their rapists get out after fucking 2 minutes in jail, and then there's people for nasty fucking tweets doing longer. That is fucking mental, man. And people felt like Starmer was using this opportunity when people had fucked up on their tweets. They're obviously criticising him, for him to throw the book at them and make an example out of them for having a go at him. Do you know what I mean? And not probably not in all cases, but they felt the wrath of him. People lost years of their life for a horrible tweet, which in the heat of the moment, after you've just found out children have been killed, probably isn't going to be a measured tweet. And I'm certainly not excusing anything anyone's posted, because there was some fucked up shit said, man. But when you compare it to what sentences other people get, it just felt like a huge reaction from him, and a meaningful one of, this'll teach us. It's a shame he doesn't have that attitude towards the rest of crime in the UK. Let me tell you. The hurty words on Twitter we're bothered about. The rest of it, they don't seem to give a fuck, mate. This is a video of Keir Starmer laying flowers down at the memorial for the victims.
How many more children are going off streets, Prime Minister? How many more children? How many more children, Prime Minister? We're going to do something. Time to change, Starmer. Come on, it's needed. How many more children? Is it mine next? What's you to stand up for our children? Yeah. Bye-bye. Got his photos, off you go. Make a real change, Prime Minister. Yes, so make a real change! Get our children! Go away!
And you hear at the end of that video a woman say, I just found out my friend's 9-year-old died. I think that's what she said. And you hear the anger. Is that far-right thuggery? He had an opportunity there to touch base with that community, as a real leader would have done, and to really hear them out, and to face up to the state of the country. Front-facing. Be a man of the people. That's what you're supposed to be. You're the fucking Prime Minister. And yet he just scurried away like a fucking little rat. Got his photograph and got the fuck out of there. He's a weasel of a man. He really is. Because if he had took control of that situation and heard those members of the community out and tried to calm them and make them feel heard, maybe it wouldn't have got as out of hand as what it fucking did. But God help us if we're expecting a real leader in the UK. We've had pussies for fucking decades. Now, given everything I've told you about the way this kid was moving before he committed this crime, all the terrorist literature he was reading and all of the horrible fucked up shit he was into, they all knew that this kid was a terrorist. But after this had happened, they knew pretty immediately. Starmer deliberately didn't acknowledge anything to do with terrorism about this guy, because I guess he would have vindicated a lot of what people had been saying, that this was a terror attack, and then he would lose his moral high ground against the far-right thuggery, so he just didn't acknowledge it. And that is where you withhold information from the public and don't give them the full story deliberately. There's a little bit of excuse making, because the definition of terrorist, does he fulfill every single box to tick in that? Maybe not. But the bottom line is, he could have said in a roundabout way, look, we know the kid was reading some terrorist manuals, whatever. You could have said something, but he deliberately didn't. So then we get to the trial, and Axel Rudakubana was accused of 16 charges, 3 counts of murder, 10 attempted murder, and possession of a knife, possession of a biological toxin, a poison, ricin, and possession of information likely to be used to a person committing or preparing to commit an act of terrorism. So even in the charges, it's there in black and white. Now, initially, there was delays to the trial due to Axel Rudakubana's defence team delaying the trial. And some people have speculated that because a lot of mainstream media did not cover those fact that the trial got delayed, that they were just trying to push it along the road a bit to limit the impact of when the full details came out about what this guy really was. When Rudakubana finally rocked up the court after claiming to be ill all day and keeping the families of the victims waiting and everyone waiting, he remained silent. Didn't say a thing. Didn't give a fuck. You think yourself, you know, they're asking him questions and he's just acting like they don't even exist. The cheek of the little bastard. And if there's anyone who really deserves a good hiding in this world, it's him. And he actually entered a plea of not guilty, which is staggering given everything that they had on him. I mean, the cheek of him. People like him, there's no limit to the lack of fucks they give. And the arrogance of them. And they longed it out as long as they could. And then on the day that they were finally going to get into the trial and do the bad character evidence against him, where we find out what he was but before this all happened, he decides to change it to guilty. Which is a shame, because apparently on that day, a teacher from his school had been granted anonymity to give accounts of how he'd been violent, disruptive, give a glimpse into, you know, who he really was instead of this sort of quiet choir boy. So the word guilty was the first thing he even said throughout the whole court case. He didn't say anything else before that. And his team wanted to submit his considerable mental health records where, you know, they've mentioned some of his problems. They even said he had autism. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Plenty of beautiful autistic people around the world, man. Shut the fuck up. This isn't why you've done this. So stop trying to pin it on shit. No one cares. Then during sentencing, where the judge was finally going to nail this little bastard for all he's worth, he starts piping up. Oh, we want to talk now, do we, big lad? Oh, we got something to say. I need to speak to a paramedic. I feel ill. You're not giving me any support, Judge. I feel ill. That's what he was saying. Bro, you don't deserve nothing, mate. Death by 1,000 needles is what you deserve, you little fucker. The cheek of him to say he feels ill. You're alive, you fucking prick. More than you deserve to be. A family member actually apparently shouted coward at that point, and good on them. They're never ever going to have the revenge, and revenge would never solve a loss like that anyway. They're never going to get what they deserve, which is real justice, which is to watch this bastard suffer to the bitter end. But at least, like, have your say. I don't blame you. He got kicked out after that, which I think some people have speculated, and I think that the timing matches up. I'm not 100% sure, but that he wanted to get kicked out before the victim statements were read, where he has to listen to all the pain and suffering that he's caused these people. And again, not even man enough to face up to that. Even as a murderer goes, this is the lowest of the low, innit? Hasn't even got that about him to at least sit and listen to them. And he was sentenced to 52 years in jail after receiving 13 sentences of custody for life. The judge said it was unlikely he would ever be released from prison. The fact that we even have to say that is, again, more problem with what I've got with the justice system, man. How the fuck can we even say probably never? Have you seen what he's fucking done? How can that even be a sentence? Now the parents go home and pick up the pieces and have to carry on after going through the worst time any person can ever go through. And I feel for them. I'm glad that they've got this over with and that they can do some form of healing if that's even possible. And one person who immediately got himself out there, got his face out there, was Keir Starmer again. He said, you know, we're going to change some rules to make it harder for this to happen again, yada, yada, yada. He actually defended himself as to why he didn't mention the terrorism link earlier. He said it was to not interfere with the trial. Didn't want to jeopardize anything, apparently. Well, that's interesting, because all of the people that you labelled as far-right thugs, you condemned them before their trial. Not a problem, mate. Absolutely fine. One rule, another rule. Okay, that's how it works. All right. And technically, unless an attack is carried out by a gunman or bomber, a terror attack has to have a motive declared by the killer or accomplices. Technically. That doesn't mean Keir Starmer couldn't have come out and said there was an Al-Qaeda manual. We found that. Just something. Throw us a fucking bone here. Let us know the gist of the situation. Let the newspapers print a picture of this guy as he is now, instead of manipulating him to be a little boy. So in order to subdue the anger of the country and the mob, potentially, you could easily argue that they withheld certain things. They made sure that the photograph of him was different to what it could have been. And they just played a few little tricks on the public, in my opinion, here, in order to withhold the full story. And it is ironic that these are the same people who would constantly project the word misinformation at us when they are the kings of it. The idea that he was going to jeopardize the trial is just, it's not washing with me, man. They caught him red-handed. They had victim statements, witness statements, CCTV. He was literally there, covered in fucking blood with a knife in his hand. You're telling me that you saying that he was a terrorist is going to jeopardize whether or not they convict them? Fuck off. There was rumours that went round about why Keir Starmer was so sketchy across all of this. Did he have anything to do with the immigration of the parents coming into the country was one theory. A very, very good journalist has been covering a lot of this. Charlie Bentley Astor, big credit, man. What work she's done on this. She has said, I can reveal the following to the British public. A source within a senior office of the British government stated that yes, Prime Minister Keir Starmer had encountered the Rudakubana family before the events which took place in Southport. He is said to have had a role in the family's asylum case. However, Starmer's people at Downing Street have completely denied this and said there's no truth in it at all. And I don't know if she found any evidence. And I think given the lack of paperwork, it's pretty unlikely that we will ever know. And whether he did or he didn't, it still doesn't change the fact that he was a shit show throughout this whole thing, in my opinion. And the media also deserve to have the finger pointed at them in the way they reported on it. I mean, look at this, for fuck's sake. The Amazon killer. They're blaming on the fact that he got the knife from Amazon. On multiple newspapers, total disgrace, he was able to buy a knife on Amazon. It's Amazon's fault, is it? The Amazon killer. If I mow someone down in a Ford Focus, can I blame it on the Ford garage that sold me the Ford? There's knives in every fucking kitchen in the country, mate. A knife didn't do this crime. He used the knife to do the crime. Him. Why? Why were there so many signs beforehand that you fucking ignored? And that's the fucking question that our journalists are asking, is it? Why could he manage to buy a knife off Amazon? Is that the standard? God help us. Fuck me. Who possibly, after all of this, in Britain can feel safe? Women and children especially can't feel safe. How can you? The reason people were outraged is because of how often this happens. Stabbings every fucking day. One happened on the day I'm recording this. Multiple people killed in London. I'll end on this. The UK has never ever been more desperate for a strong leader in my lifetime. And it's been pathetic since I've been born, don't get me wrong. But fuck me. Is this country a mess? And before I nip off, I do want to point you to this site, the Just Giving page for the Southport Strong Together appeal, where we can donate, give now, and if you want to, I'll put the link in the description below so you can make it easy to just click on there from there. Once again, my heart goes out to the families who have suffered this. No person should ever have to go through this, and it's just fucking so sad, man. It's really one of the saddest things I've ever covered in my life, one of the most horrific things I've ever done a video on, and I hope you know that my heart was in the right place with this. And I know when you cover sensitive stuff, people can be like funny about it, I don't know, but I'm always just trying to do my best. Hopefully I shined a light on certain things that needed to be said in this video. It just can't carry on, man. It's unbelievable. Appreciate all of you lot who've tuned in for this one. I'll be back soon. Catch us on the next one.